to our regular council meeting on May the 4th. And may the 4th be with you, all of you as well. I'd like to call the meeting to order and just welcome all of you to our virtual council chambers, and we will get started. So the first thing up is the adoption of the agenda here. I have a recommendation moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa, that the agenda for May the 4th, 2020 regular meeting of council be accepted and passed with the following amendments. County Council update, addition of the Wellington Dufferin Guelph Public Health COVID-19 pandemic modeling presentation, and under items for consideration, the amended schedule to item 5B, report CLK 2020-008, electronic council and committee meeting policy. Any questions or comments on those amendments? Okay, all those in favor then? That's carried, thank you. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest today on the items on today's agenda? I don't have any. Councillor Yake?
No.
Councillor Hearn?
No.
Councillor McCabe?
I do not.
And Councillor Burke?
No.
Okay, thank you. So I guess that brings us to the County Council update. And for the County Council update today, I just wanted to go through a few highlights from a presentation we received at County Council last Thursday. That's why it was late being added to the agenda, because I didn't see it till, didn't get the presentation till Thursday and all the information that went with it. It was presented by a couple of the doctors from our public health area. I'm not going to attempt to explain it as well as they did, but I just wanted to share it with all of you because I think it was some really good information in that. So they went through some background in terms of the number of cases in Ontario and in Wellington, Dufferin Guelph, and then they presented you've probably all heard about the provincial modeling for COVID-19. So what they presented was a model for Wellington, Dufferin Guelph exclusively. So it's a model that's been adapted to the situation in Wellington, Dufferin Guelph. And in that model, there's explanation of how do people get COVID-19, and how does they end up possibly, hopefully not, but in hospital or ICU. And so in the model, they talked about 3 different scenarios, and this is the key area that I thought was worth sharing with this group. And I'll do the best I can, but so the model, scenario A, involved physical distancing, as we've been applying right now, applied for a period of 3 months, and then nothing further after that 3 months. So that's the assumption is we do what we're doing now for 3 months, and then we just go back to the way it was before for the duration. And the expectation is the planning horizon for this is 2 years. So if no vaccine is found or no treatments are found, we're likely going to be living with COVID-19 in our community for a period of about 2 years, because through the cycles of people becoming infected, those who are fortunate getting better, and new people becoming infected, etc. This will likely go on without a vaccine or treatment for at least a period of about 2 years. So back to the scenarios. Scenario B was physical distancing, much like we've been doing already, applied for a period of 12 months. And then scenario C was physical distancing applied in what they call the dynamic manner, or basically on again, off again. So on, like we have now, a relaxation, so off, and then when more cases begin to crop up, turn it back on again, and doing that a number of times over the 2-year time horizon. So they provided with a bunch of assumptions. I'll let you read those all on your own. Just it's based on what they know to date of COVID-19 and how it becomes infected. This is just a model to give a an idea of what happens. It's not, doesn't approximate reality, but they try to get as close as they can with the mathematical model that they have. So under the, if you're following along, you get to the model results. And so you can see under scenario A, B, and C, under scenario A, the overall percentage of the population infected after 2 years is 54%, with a range of that being 29 to 68%. Scenario B, it's only 18%, and scenario C, 3%. And the total number of deaths with under these scenarios, under scenario A, which is the on 3 months and off, and no further action for the duration of the 2 years, 2,814 deaths in Wellington, Dufferin, Guelph is their model's estimate. Under scenario B, where it's physical distancing for 12 months, solid, 171 deaths. And then scenario C, where it's on again, off again, as low as 106 deaths. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on each of these models, but it does show that the more we can do to reduce the spread of this for the period of 2 years, the more lives that are going to be saved, I think is the bottom line. And the model doesn't give any consideration to new habits that we're learning through this process. It just assumes under these scenarios, the physical distancing's turned off, and then it's turned on, and then when it's turned off, we go back to everything we did before. So to me, the big take-home message from this is there's a lot of things that we can do as individuals and as organizations to try to minimize the impact of this on our community by doing what we can to remain physically distanced, even then the economy begins to open up again. To continue to stay 6 feet away from people, but still allow ourselves to get together and meet in a more normal format, or having new ways to work in our workplaces so that we can maintain that distance and continue to do many of the things that we're already doing, but try to get our lives back to normal from an economy perspective. So they've included a few nice graphs in there if you happen to be looking at that. So scenario A in the one graph talks about new hospitalizations immediately after or soon after the relaxation of the physical distancing. There's a big spike in hospitalizations, and you'll find a big spike in deaths as well. And under the other two scenarios, it's such a big spike that the graph, it dwarfs the lines. Same thing with hospitalizations and deaths all through A, B, and C. Certainly, scenario A is very unpalatable in terms of the number of deaths, because, well, those deaths are just a number in the presentation. We got to remember that each one of those deaths are people who have brothers and sisters and sons and daughters and family. So I think we need to keep that in mind. Sometimes it's easy to lose sight of we hear the numbers, but we got to remember that all those numbers are attached to individuals with loved ones. So just wanted to share that information with you and provide a summary, because I think it's important for us to, as we go into our decision making going forward, that we think about ways that we can, over the next couple of years, ways that we can help reduce or minimize the spread of this virus, because we want as many of our citizens to remain alive and healthy as we possibly can. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Should anybody have any, I'll do my best to answer them. But again, it was presentation from the doctors, and I'm not going to get into the technical side of it. Steve.
I just got a quick question, and thank you for this, Andy. It's pretty sobering to hear that it's going to be like this maybe for 2 years. Hopefully it's the best case scenario, but you always have to plan for the worst. I'm just looking at page 15, cases in ICU in Wellington, Dufferin, Guelph, all scenarios and zoomed. And scenario B, the 12-month, has a big spike right near the edge of the graph.
Yeah, so that scenario, that scenario is on for 12 months and then off.
Okay, all right.
So what happens then is it takes longer and it's a smaller peak, but there is a peak there.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Guess if there's no others, again, if council would like, I probably could request public health make presentation to us in the future, although I think they're extremely busy, so we may have to wait a little bit. But if that's council's wish, I certainly would be happy to get involved with organizing that. So, but this is fresh information for me, and I wanted to get it in front of you as well. Okay. If there's no other questions, then I think we'll move on. And the next item up for our agenda is the presentation from Wellington North Fire Service, the COIN PTSD Prevention Plan. Dave, over to you.
Good evening. Thanks, Mayor Lennox and members of council. Tonight I will present Project All In, or as I call it, the COIN. It's a further enhancement to our post-traumatic disorder prevention plan. And I really believe that we have one of the top leading post-traumatic disorder prevention plans in this province. Pretty proud of it. And we really care about our firefighters, and we're there for them. So the goals of the program really are to eradicate stigma, to allow sufferers and non-sufferers alike to easily engage in conversation, and the COIN can be used as a mayday. And the objective is making the conversation around mental health illness for first responders just that much easier. You can present the COIN to a colleague or a member of the peer support team. So the solution is a COIN, and it's a conversation starter. So you'll see in the slide here, we as firefighters sometimes get a little more than we anticipate doing our job. And unfortunately, those situations happen on a regular basis. Thank goodness not here in Wellington North that much, but they do happen. So the COIN is presented when firefighters feel the need to just talk or wish to team debrief. An emergency response call, any issue, as we say, let's talk. They can present the COIN, and I know council, each one of you have received a COIN. That's compliments of the fire service. They're all numbered, so you have your own personal COIN, and you can certainly use them amongst yourselves. And our fire service is committed not only to the fire service, but to all the staff members of the Township of Wellington North. So when firefighters are having dark thoughts, turning to negative vices, they feel they have no place to go, feel suicidal, feel others just don't understand, if we say, let's talk. The Wellington North Fire Service firefighter can present the COIN to any Wellington North Fire Service firefighter. If the maple leaf side is shown, if you look at your COIN, you'll see the maple leaf. It's let's talk, and that's a one-on-one with a brother or sister firefighter. If the buffalo side is shown, let's have a team debrief. Again, let's talk. COIN design, side one, the maple leaf. The points and veins represent the many first responders, fire, police, EMS, military, nurses, doctors, dispatchers, and so many others, as well those who staff the front lines and the helplines. This is the help side, and I can't stress enough of what's happening with COVID and the recent tragedies in Nova Scotia. Very important, this COIN program. And the acronym, I CAN, you'll see that around the edge of the COIN. It's the positive first step towards fixing the situation. So identify. Well, identify is all our firefighters, or the new ones not yet, but will be trained and certified to identify if someone is struggling. And how can I help? And that's what the I stands for. And then there's conditions. Well, what is your condition now? How are you feeling? What actions have you taken? What are your needs? Do you need to speak to a peer support member? Do you need a doctor? Do you want me to just listen? Side two, the buffalo. Blue is known as the color of the mind. It's soothing and has a calming effect. The buffalo is known in some cultures as the protector, at the front of the herd, shielding others and taking the brunt. Even the strongest, bravest, and biggest need help once in a while. Unfortunately, these situations, this scene here does happen, and you can just imagine what these firefighters are going through right now. Around the buffalo, you'll see the words goals, gratitude, strength, and sacrifice. Well, obviously, our fire service has goals and objectives, save lives and property. We're grateful to be firefighters, and we know the public appreciate and are grateful for what we do. We have strength and courage, and sometimes we do have to sacrifice. These words resonate very well with our first responders. This is the debrief side. This is the team approach to post-traumatic stress disorder and getting together to talk. Standard operating guideline. We have hundreds of guidelines within the Wellington North Fire Service. This is a new one, of course, and you'll notice at the top right, there's no number. They're all being reviewed at the present time, so this will be assigned a number in the weeks and months to come. Introduction. Mental health refers to our cognitive, behavioral, and emotional well-being. The Wellington North Fire Service is committed to various programs that will assist the firefighters when they need help. All Wellington North Fire Service firefighters have been presented with an all-in coin. Now, yeah, you can appreciate I prepared this before COVID, so unfortunately, they all haven't received them, but they will be receiving them very shortly. The coin can be used at any time you feel the need, you need help or wish to debrief. The coin and its purpose must be taken seriously. It represents understanding and non-judgment. Purpose. The purpose of this document is to outline the expectations of the Wellington North Fire Service members with respect to their work environments. Scope. The SOG applies to all members of the Wellington North Fire Service. Responsibility. All officers of the Wellington North Fire Service are to ensure that personnel under their command are adequately trained, fully understand, and comply with the guideline. And this is consistent throughout all of the guidelines. All members of the Wellington North Fire Service have the responsibility to learn and follow this guideline. The coin represents understanding and not judgment. It's used whenever you feel a struggle to open a conversation about seeking help, regardless if the help needed stems from work or a personal matter. Again, all members will get a coin in the very near future, and it's called the all-in coin. It will be taken seriously and is not to be used for beer currency. And I know there's a little bit of a chuckle there, but as we know, there are beer coins out there and they're exchanged for beer. That is not what this coin is all about. The coin can be slid across the table towards a member, any member. A member can be a member of the peer support group. It can be a clinician. It can be a fellow firefighter. Recognition and full attention is understood between both parties. What can I do? If the coin is presented with the maple leaf, that's the help side, that's the one-on-one. And if it's presented with the buffalo, the blue side, that's the debrief side. As the recipient, you are encouraged to start the conversation. The coin does not need to be carried at all times. Integrity and honor. Full confidentiality shall be adhered to between the users of the program unless there is a serious potential for someone to harm themselves or someone else. The project all in is attached and forms part of the standard operating guideline. Having the coin in your pocket is a reminder that you can seek help, that there is support around you, and that you do not need to suffer alone. After all, we're all in this together. And this is from Chad Gunter. He's a firefighter and co-founder of the program All In. A special thanks to firefighters Chad Gunter from Canmore, Alberta, and Greg Shalley. He's from Rockview County, Alberta, and they were instrumental in putting this coin together. And in brief conversations with them, they're two terrific people and really support PTSD program. And now, any questions or anything you want to comment about the program?
Okay. Any questions for Dave?
I was going to say, I think it's a fantastic initiative, Dave, and thanks for bringing it to our fire service and getting in touch with the two firemen from Alberta that kicked this off. I think it's extremely important to keep the lines of communications open, especially when you deal with the stuff that you guys have to deal with. So thank you for that.
You're most welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Dan, go ahead. Dan, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'd also like to thank Dave. Dave, I'd also like to thank you for your efforts in bringing this forward. It's a unique approach to the way frontline people deal with issues, and something that I certainly didn't know about, but we'll certainly try to learn a little bit more about. So, thank you for bringing it forward, and hopefully it works and helps save a few lives along the way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Sherry, are you still here? Sherry, you dropped from my screen.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay,
I can hear you, but my computer keeps doing crazy things, so I'm trying to come back in.
Okay.
But I can hear what's going on.
Okay. Did you have any questions or anything for Dave?
I don't. I just applaud the efforts. As we know, peer support is always a great thing, and any tools that can help that along the way, I think is a good thing.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Dave? Okay. Thank you very much, Dave, for both bringing this forward and sharing the presentation with us tonight. You mentioned that the firefighters, some of them will not have received this yet. So do you have a timeline in mind for when you expect to have this fully in place?
Thank you, Mayor Lennox. The firefighters, the coins are all numbered and they've been assigned. It's just a case of getting them to them without calling a meeting, and we're obviously looking after the distancing, but we're going to try to get them. I wanted to personally deliver them to each firefighter. So I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks for sure we're going to they're going to receive them, and we have more on order. They're very, very difficult to get a hold of. And so we have some more ordered because, as you know, we have new recruits, and we want to make sure there's enough for everybody. So we're on it, and hopefully within the next 2 weeks, each member should have their own coin.
Okay, great. Thank you. Dan, did you have something further? Dan?
I just wanted to ask, Dave, you said they're all numbered. I see the number on the back. Is that number registered somewhere with somebody?
The numbers we have a series through your worship. We have they're a series, and they're recorded obviously from the folks out west. But those numbers and firefighters, it's all kept track of internally.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, not hearing any further questions. Again, thank you, Dave, for the presentation and the program.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Next item on our agenda is the adoption of the minutes of the council and the public meeting from regular meeting of council April 20th, 2020. I have a recommendation here moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry, that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on April 20th, 2020 be adopted as circulated. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that? So I got a question, Karen, from a process perspective. Since Sherry's not visible, should I call on her individually and then?
We can hear her. Yes, please.
Okay.
I can hear you guys and I can see all you guys. I just can't figure.
No, I'm just trying to figure the process out, Sherry.
Yeah, that's okay.
As long as we can see a show of hands from those who are visible and we can hear what Sherry's vote is, we will be okay.
Okay, Sherry. So while you're still invisible, can you, when I call the motion, I'll let everybody else raise their hands, but can you just say aye or yes or something to acknowledge?
Yes.
Okay.
I will.
Okay, thank you. So again, the recommendation is that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on April 20th, 2020 be adopted as circulated. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's carried. Okay, now we're on to items for consideration. So it's the opportunity to pull out some things for further discussion. Does anybody have a list they'd like to dive in with here? Karen, did you have some?
There are two items that need to be discussed. One is item 5B, which is that amended to the agenda of the electronic policy. And the other one is 6B, where council needs to appoint Wellington North Power members of council to go to the annual shareholder meeting. So that is 5B and 6B.
Okay. And I would suggest 3B as well, which is the quarterly financial update.
2A.
2A.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that's the community improvement program, Lisa.
Mhm.
Okay. Any others?
Yeah. Sorry, yes. Your worship, 4D, please, just the Arthur wastewater treatment plant expansion. Just think that's a good thing to hear about, and especially while we have some more than usual numbers participating from our general public, which is great. They probably need to see some of this stuff as well. I think it's and hopefully Matt can do a good presentation with that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any others? Okay, I'll just recap so far. We've got 2A, 3B, 4D, 5B, and 6B.
Not to wander into another conversation about this again, but we should probably maybe have a quick chat about 6A as well.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any others? Carrie?
No, I'm good.
Dan?
No, I'm fine.
Lisa?
No, good.
Okay, so I'll just quickly recap. So we're going to pull out for discussion 2A, 2B, 4D, 5B, 6A, and 6B. So I'm going to say it's moved by, so we're going to deal with all the others. So moved by Lisa, seconded by Dan. I'll get to the recommendation here. That all items listed under the items for consideration on May 4th, 2020 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and the recommendations therein be adopted. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's carried. That brings us back now to 2A. This is the community improvement program. And I'm going to suggest that recommendation is moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve. And I'll read the recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report EDO 2020-008. And further, the council approve a facade improvement grant of $2,500 to McFarland Family Dental at 392 Main Street North, Unit 3 in Mount Forest. And further, the council approve a public art grant of $1,500 to the Arthur Chamber of Commerce at 146 George Street in Arthur. Open the floor up for discussion on that one. Lisa?
Yeah, all that I wanted to say about it is I think at our last council meeting, I talked about the Paint the Town Rainbow, and it's in here, in your report. A fair bit of Arthur has already been done, and it looks wonderful, much better than Dale's crude magic marker depiction of it. So if anyone has a chance to go drive through Arthur, it looks wonderful. There's a very efficient team. Most of the town is done.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. Well done.
Okay. Dale, did you want to comment on that now that you've been thrown under the bus?
Yeah, no, I got nothing really to add. I agree with Councillor Hearn. I think they're doing an awesome job with the Paint the Rainbow. It's going to look pretty cool when it's all done. And I know they're appreciative of council's support in helping to fund some of this for them. So thank you for that.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
it's
you.
bright.
Any other questions or comments on that one? Okay, I'll call the motion then. All those in favor?
Yes.
That's carried. Thank you. Next up is this is 2B, the first quarter 2020 financial update. And I'm going to suggest that that's moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa. And the recommendation is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the first quarter 2020 financial update. Okay, I'll open the floor for any discussion on that. I guess it's me that pulled that one, so I'm going to just comment that our first quarter looks reasonably normal and strong so far. But let's keep in mind too that the changes thrust upon us through the COVID-19 response really will not be showing themselves to any great extent during that first quarterly report. And while we're on a good path so far, it's more uncertain as we go forward, and we'll need to keep a close eye on it and figure out how we're going to manage not only cash flow but the outcome by the time we get to later in the year. So again, just wanted to thank Adam for that report, and it's good to see that we're relatively on track at this point. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, I'll call that motion then. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's carried. That brings us to 4B, the Arthur Wastewater Treatment Plant Expansion Project quarterly report. And I'm going to say that this one is moved by Steve, seconded by Sherry. The recommendation is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the Arthur Wastewater Treatment Plant Expansion Project Contract 1 Quarterly Report A1 2020. And I'll open the floor for any discussion on that one.
I just wanted to talk about it, Mayor Andy. It's a great presentation. There's lots of great pictures and lots of information on it as well, because I don't get down to see it as often as I probably should while it's getting renovated and expanded. I was just going to ask you, Matt, if you had 2 seconds to pitch in. How do you think it's going?
Through you, Mayor Lennox, I think the Wellington construction has really had lots of staff on site, and they're really doing the biggest portion of the project in terms of the big tank that they need to make out of concrete. They've also, some of the other tankage on the site, they've started replacing, and we're on temporary systems right now. So there's been lots of work getting done. Yeah, and everything, although there's risk related to supply chain and all that, I would suggest that there hasn't really been any slowdown of that project moving forward, and Wellington Construction has been really moving it forward. So I think it's all good from my standpoint.
And even through this situation that we're in right now, it seems to still be marching on, right? That's fantastic.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on that one? No. Okay, I would just like to add my thanks for that report too. It is, it's good to see those pictures. You know, it's a huge project with lots of dollars involved, and the end result, a lot of it will be hidden from view. So it's good to see some pictures along the way to recognize that those dollars, while we're burying them underground, they are for real physical assets. So again, thank you for that. And it's quite an extensive report. Any final questions or comments on that one? Okay, I'll call the motion. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's carried. Brings us to 5B. This is a report to CLK 2020-008 Electronic Council and Committee Meeting Policy. And the recommendation, I'm going to say it's moved by Lisa, seconded by Dan. The Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North received report CLK 2020-008, being a report on electronic council and committee meeting policy. And further, the council endorses the electronic council and committee meeting policy. Open the floor for discussions on that one. Karen?
So today in our test run with the fire chief and Mandy, we figured out how to put backgrounds on our Zoom meetings, and it became apparent that we were going to need something in there to restrict that. So that's what's created the amendments, and they're highlighted in yellow. So it's section 9, section 15, section 23, and then section 26 talks about you're going to give the authority to the clerk to update this policy from time to time, because this is new to us, and as we're finding things out, we don't want to have to wait every 2 weeks to bring this back to council. And it's really hard to think of all the implications right now when this is so new to us, but the background became quite apparent today that something needed to be done. So those are why it's being amended.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Steve, and then Lisa.
Are we supposed to have a background so that that you can't see my tie rack behind me and an old hat, or what?
No, but you can literally download any picture off the internet and put that as your background. And so we want to limit it to being non-political, being not offensive. And I know that's subjective, but it doesn't violate any legislation or human rights, things like that. I mean, you can literally put up anything on there. So, if it was election time, we're having a Zoom meeting and we had a vote for Steve there, right? Like, yeah. So, or advertising businesses, things like that. We don't want that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Lisa?
Sort of the same question. In some of my other meetings, I have a couple virtual backgrounds on here, forest and trees and stuff like that. So I could put that if I felt like it. Let's stay away from the beach scene.
Yeah, and so we're not restricting those, but we're also, like, we tried it today with 3 of us, and I have the town logo in my background. It worked fine. And then when I tried to do it tonight, it seemed to be the more people you got on there, the wonkier it went. So it's still new. We're trying it out, but yeah, no vote for
Like that.
Yeah,
That one doesn't work very well, but
you're fading into the trees, Lisa.
Yeah.
that's what's happening to us. So yeah. Yep.
And I think about the date today, May the 4th, and the Star Wars thing. That was 1977. Here we are in 2000. 2020, and we're struggling with this way of having a meeting. It's the force never anticipated this before now, so we're making it up as we go along.
That is the way.
That was a galaxy long time ago. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll call motion then. All those in favor?
Yes.
That's carried. Thank you. We're now on to 6A. This is the correspondence from Mark Baldock, dated April 25th, 2020, request regarding backyard chickens. And the recommendation that we have here, and I'm going to suggest that this is moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve. And the recommendation is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the correspondence dated April 25th, 2020 from Mark Baldock, request from resident regarding backyard chickens. Open the floor for questions or comments.
I thought we should probably maybe have a chat about this, just as a courtesy, probably maybe to perhaps reaffirm what our stance is. And I know I, for one, would not support this going through or going ahead any further than the discussion that we had back in December of 2017.
Okay, thanks, Steve. I know that my correspondence to Mr. Baldock was that unless a member of council really wanted to champion this cause, that we would receive their correspondence, receive his correspondence rather, but no action would be taken unless either someone wants to run with this or he wants to make a formal application through a zoning bylaw amendment, which has fees attached to it. So,
right.
Anyone else like to comment on this?
Yeah, I haven't changed my opinion on it. I'm not interested in championing the cause, if you will. I support the bylaw that we still have in place now.
Okay, thanks, Sherry. Lisa, I think your hand was up.
Yeah, I think I'll just, kind of reaffirm, I think, what Sherry and Councillor McCabe have said, especially at this point in time. I have particular concerns about the zoonotic potential of COVID-19. I understand his logic and reasoning and applaud him for wanting to be in touch with his food supply and all of that. But there's just way too much that's unknown out there at this point in time. And there's a variety of other reasons too. I would have to say no. I would maintain the status quo.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, then again, this is just to receive the correspondence. I'll call the motion then. All those in favor?
Yes.
That's carried. Thank you, everyone. And that brings us to 6B. This is the correspondence from Jim Kluber, CEO, President of Wellington North Power, dated April 30th, 2020, regarding the 2020 annual shareholder meeting to be held May 26th, 2020. And I'm going to suggest that this is moved by Lisa, seconded by Dan. The Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North received correspondence dated April 30th, 2020 from Jim Kluber, CEO, President, Wellington North Power Inc., regarding the 2020 annual shareholder meeting. And further, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North appoints the following persons representing the township at the Wellington North Power annual shareholder meeting to be held May 26th, 2020. And so we need to appoint, or I guess volunteer, we need some volunteers to be the official shareholder representative in that meeting. Before we, we can do it as part of the discussion. Does anybody want to comment on this and or volunteer? We need to fill Karen, do we need to fill 2 or 3 gaps with this? 2?
3.
3, we need 3?
3.
Okay.
I don't mind throwing my hat in the ring.
Okay.
I don't either. It's not like I'm going anywhere.
Okay, Anyone else want to comment or volunteer?
I can do it. I've been there. I've been there before. Is this going to be a Zoom type meeting?
That's the expectation at the moment, yes. Unless things
Okay.
change dramatically, it will be a virtual type meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So we've got Councillor McCabe, Councillor Hearn, and Councillor Burke who've volunteered. Any other discussion on this motion? Okay, I'll call the motion then. All those in favor?
Yes.
Thank you, that's carried. Thanks, thank you for volunteering. That brings us to our time for notice of motion this evening. Anybody have a notice of motion they'd like to bring forward?
I do not.
Okay. Hearing none. Brings us to our community group meeting program report. And I was going to suggest to members of council that you're free to talk about any of the community group meeting type things, but I also wanted to broaden the scope a little bit and give you all an opportunity to share any information you're hearing about because of our current situation, things that you think the rest of us would benefit from hearing, or those types of things as well. I think we could open this up, just an opportunity for each of you to weigh in. We don't get the same opportunity to talk, before and after our regular meetings. So just, please feel free to a certain extent to share your thoughts and concerns, and it's just an opportunity for us to kind of get a feel for what we're all hearing out there. Anybody have anything they'd like to start us off with? Dan, please go ahead. Dan?
Well, obviously our committee meetings are limited or non-existent right at the moment, but from what I've seen in the community is that I think people have bought into the social distancing idea. You see a lot more people out walking. They're certainly keeping their distance. Downtown, same way. The parks, I think people have realized that staying away from the parks is part of the process. But I also think that people are going to start to get a little bit antsy here with the warm weather, and it's going to be hard to keep the momentum going. And I know you had suggested earlier, Andy, that the county is suggesting the possibility of starting and stopping. I think it may be a difficult way to do that too. Once people are used to getting back to maybe some sense of normalcy, it may be a little bit difficult for that. But as far as I'm concerned, I think people have really, in our community anyway, have bought into the protections that have been put in place. And I have to give a shout out to the people at our local hospital and the frontline workers here and everywhere that are doing such a terrific job. So anyway, that's about all I really have to say.
Okay, thanks, Dan. And just as a clarification, that scenario C from the presentation, public health did also indicate that they didn't think that was really a policy that they would pursue because of exactly what you're saying, that it would be very hard to implement and on and off. They just put it in as part of the modeling.
Sure. Okay, very good.
Yeah. Anybody else? Lisa?
Yeah, I don't have any community group meeting reports like I did last time. However, I'm reading through my emails right now, and I had some correspondence with Dale about the cultural roundtable. And I don't know about the rest of council, but I really value feedback from groups like this, and I'm feeling extremely detached right now, being home all the time. So I had asked Dale to reach out and see if maybe we could have a virtual meeting with the Cultural Roundtable. And it looks like we're getting some good feedback. So I think we likely will be going forward with a virtual meeting in a couple of weeks. So I look forward to that. Second thing, I don't know whether anyone else is getting a lot of comments about the dump being closed and garbage, etc. I've noticed quite a substantial amount of garbage on the side roads. I do an awful lot of walking. But for those people that drop garbage, there are just as many and many more good people. I had to say that on Saturday, I've been looking at this garbage and I didn't want to touch it because I'm so afraid of catching COVID-19. I don't want to be rooting through people's garbage. But two people that I don't know, and I didn't even see their vehicles. I couldn't see a vehicle anywhere. Cleaned that entire stretch of road. So I just wanted to say thank you to whoever they are because I don't know. And my property is over 1 kilometer long and they cleaned both sides and just kept right on going. So thank you. And that's it.
Thank you, Lisa. Anybody else? Steve?
Later on this week, the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority is going to have their monthly, I guess, or quarterly Zoom meeting as well. We'll probably get some updates on the SVCA trails, access points, and how long they're going to probably remain closed. I know it's tough right now to go fishing anywhere because some of the access points are closed, and that has a big that's a big adjustment for a lot of people as well as we go through this. And as your scenarios play out, you'd think fishing would be all right, and I'm planning to go fishing at some point whenever the weather is good. But we'll have an official update from SVCA for our next meeting.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Dan, I think your hand was up.
I just wanted to expand on Councillor Hearn's comments about people cleaning up. There's a lady in Mount Forest that I guess just had nothing better to do, but she's been working pretty hard at cleaning up the south side of North Water Street along the riverbank. And she's been there for a number of days, and she has done a tremendous job there. And I stopped to talk to her the other day, asked her if she needed anything, and she said no. She said town staff had been very helpful in help cleaning up some of the brush that she pulled out and some of the garbage. So, I mean, she needed something to do, and she found a good thing to do for the community, and the township's working in conjunction with her. So just another sign of good things that are happening during a bad situation.
Yeah, and I would just add to that too, that the county has stepped up and offered free tipping for municipalities to deal with these types of issues at Riverston. So if the township is taking garbage to Riverston, they're not charging us a tipping fee at the present time either. Lisa, I think your hand was up.
It was just only in addition to what Dan said, as far as the two ladies that were cleaning the side of my road, there was even a large circular fan in the ditch, and with no car, they managed to put it in their bag and carry it down the road. So there's some great people out there.
Mayor Lennox?
Yeah, Sherry, please go ahead.
So a lot of really great comments. The Mount Forest BIA has had a couple of Zoom meetings. They're having another one tomorrow. They do plan to go ahead with the beautification projects for the main street. They still have a little bit of concern with the non-student hires on the maintenance of those planters, but they're going to go ahead with them. So I know in speaking with Matt that he was going to try and work something out with that. I'd like to thank the people that have been repurposing the stones that have been dropped off at several businesses. We received one at Foodland. They've been dropping them off at other businesses that are open up at Saugeen Valley. and several other locations in Mount Forest, just of encouragement and also thanking those that have to go to work every day. And it's nice to just see those little stones with messages and things like that. So thank you to all those folks that are very artistic and dropping off messages of encouragement.
Okay. Thank you, Sherry. Any others anybody would like to add? I would just add a little bit myself, and yes, there's a lot of people out in the community doing things that try to keep our community very livable, and we owe them all a debt of gratitude. And I think I'd like to pick up on a comment you made, Dan, and that, and I agree with you that as this goes forward and the weather is nice, people are going to be getting a little impatient about some of the restrictions and so on. And I think we're going to be challenged to find ways to continue to keep, our physical distancing as things begin to open up again. But I think really one of the points, about that presentation that I shared with you earlier, from my perspective is, I think we need to be, when we're doing that, and I know our staff are working on this for going forward, is what can we do? How can we change the way we do business to continue to maintain greater physical distance with both between our staff, plus also with members of the public? And I think we're all going to learn. I mean, I'm learning new ways to do things. I go to talk to somebody, and it seems very unnatural to stand 6 feet away from them to carry on a conversation. We're all learning new tricks, and it's not the simplest either sometimes. But I think if we can continue to encourage that behavior in our own organization and in the community, we're all going to be better off. We're all going to have a better health outcome for ourselves and our families and the members of our community. So, and I'd also like to commend our staff as well, who, nobody's at the beginning of the year when they were doing their New Year's resolutions said, I'm going to get ready for a pandemic. No, I'm not a single person said that, but they've all been working diligently behind the scenes, a lot of it, adapting to the situation. And it's, we're all feeling the anxiety. We're all fearful of what this means for ourselves and our families and our community members, but they're working diligently, keeping the business of the municipality going. And there's more things coming. We were talking about it's starting into construction season. We're going to be learning, and our contractors are learning new ways to carry on with these construction projects while trying to do everything we can to minimize the spread of this virus. So I just want to, can't say enough about all the contributions that the entire team is making as we try to carry this forward. So I'll go around the table if anybody else has anything they'd like to add, and then we'll move on. Anybody? Okay. And by the way, thanks to all of you for your cooperation in this challenging format too. It'd be much nicer to get together in person, wouldn't it?
Soon, hopefully.
Okay. That brings us to bylaws. And I think, so we got drainage bylaw that we're dealing with third time. I'm going to suggest that one's moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve. And the recommendation is the bylaw number 007-20 being provisional drain bylaw to provide for the construction of Arthur Drain 2. Drainage works be read a third time and enacted. Any questions or comments on that one? So this is the drain near Con that we dealt with previously. And we're just doing the third reading and enactment here now, so. Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, that's carried, thank you. And we're on to B here. This is, I'm going to say it's moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa. The bylaw number 39-20, being a bylaw to appoint members to Wellington North Power Inc.'s Board of Directors, Paul Smith and Mark Hillis. And open that for any discussion. Okay, all those in favor?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, Sherry, or sorry, Karen?
Yeah, you're passing both that one and 04020.
Oh, okay. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. So we have a mover and a seconder, and we're going to deal with both of these bylaws at the same time. And so then the recommendation I'm going to read is that bylaw number 39-20 and 40-20 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Okay. All those in favor?
Yes.
That's carried. Thank you. And cultural moment. Oh, I got to get my paperwork ready here. Sorry, just bear with me for a minute, please.
It's up on the screen there too, Your Worship.
Okay, well, my screen's too small for that, so thank you. Our cultural moment for May celebrates the Women's Institute. The Women's Institute was founded in Stony Creek in 1889 by Adelaide Hunter Hoodless, who took it upon herself to spread the importance of domestic science in the home, city, and country. The Spanish flu of 1918 was a huge influence on Women's Institute, as these women were thrust into roles that were not previously open to them as women. The surviving soldiers were just returning to Canada after World War I, and women outnumbered the men considerably. The medical profession were exhausted, and thus the Women's Institute members went into action. They ran individual training at people's homes on the value of hand washing, cleaning, laundry, and the value of fresh air, and volunteered to assist doctors and nurses to let them get proper rest. Grown out of their tireless work and support, many of these women sought careers in the medical field and advocated that they be allowed to enroll in colleges and universities which had never been open to them before. The Federated Women's Institutes of Ontario is a not-for-profit charitable organization with affiliations around the world, working with and for women in Ontario. Through the network of branches, they offer educational programming and community support, advocate for social, environmental, and economic change, and work towards the personal growth of all women for home and country. While the local organizations in the township have somewhat disbanded, their legacy lives on, especially in the Tweedsmuir history of their local community farms and families, and also through the past fundraising and donations made to the communities. The biggest project for the Con Women's Institute, formed in 1905 and officially disbanded in 1985, was purchasing the closed church known as Levendale in 1933 for $150 and had it moved to Con to be used as a community center. Farewell Women's Institute, formed in 1948, met in Bethel United Church basement, and at one time was honored to be the second largest group in the district. Another group formed for the North Arthur area in 1951 was known as Northgate Women's Institute. The Kenilworth Women's Institute ran from 1905 to 1923. The Arthur Centennial Women's Institute ran from 1972 to 1990, and the Damascus Women's Institute from 1968 to 2009, whose main project was the Damascus Community Hall. The track record of the Women's Institute is wide and runs deep in most communities around the world, working true to their motto, for home and country. That was submitted by Bonnie McDougall from Wellington North Cultural Roundtable. That's our cultural moment for May 4th. Thank you. And I guess that brings us to our closed meeting. So, okay, so I'm going to say this is moved by Sherry, seconded by Steve, that the recommendation is the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North Winwood meeting at 8:15 p.m. That is closed to the public under subsection 232(2) of the Municipal Act 2001, specifically dealing with personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. And we'll be dealing with report CAO presentation, Northern Wellington Fire Services, and 2, the review of the closed session minutes from April 20th, and then we'll rise and report from a closed meeting. So just anybody who's joining us on the call at this point, we're going to be exiting the Zoom platform for our closed meeting, and of course it won't be accessible to you members of the public, and anything that comes out of that closed meeting will be reported in the minutes, which will be posted on our website in terms of the public outcome from that closed session. And so with that said, we will be passing this resolution to move into closed, and then we'll be recessing so that we can use teleconference process. Steve, did you want to make a comment?
No, sorry. I was jumping the gun a little bit, sorry.
Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to make sure everybody understands where we're going here. So I'll call that motion to move into closed. All those in favor?
Yes.
That's carried, thank you. And so then I'll have a motion moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa, that we recess for let's say 10 minutes, 9 minutes, we'll reconvene at 8:25 via teleconference. Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
That's carried. Thank you. We'll see you, we'll hear you soon on teleconference. Thanks, everyone.